Cool. So, tell me a little bit about. I didn't get to come down here last night.
Okay.
So first off, tell me who you are, as much as you're comfortable telling me who you are, and who you kind of affiliate with.
Okay. So, my name's Richard. I am chairman with a newly established incorporation called Citizens Protest Response and Safety, CPRS for short. What prompted the founding of the organization was a lot of leadership, including Bear, the guy that founded it. I'm just his second, basically.
Yeah.
We were out at the protest in Indianapolis on the dates of May 29th and 30th, which went very, very poorly, and we got really messed up. We got hurt. We had a lot of other people get hurt. We all got tear gassed. We got pepper balled. It was a miserable time, and we decided we were fed up with people being afraid, between being afraid of the police and not enough people being ready to stand up to counter-protesters. We decided to do something about it. As far as affiliations, we don't really have any affiliations. Our affiliation is the people. We have absolutely no political affiliation. We've got people of all different backgrounds. We've got libertarians, we've got socialists. Our big thing is we have absolutely no affiliation to any organization that could be referred to as Antifa.
Sure.
We are not Antifa.
Do you believe that a group loosely called Antifa exists or not?
I don't know.
It's a loaded question.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, so I'll just say I do support the idea of being anti-fascist. Everybody should. My great-grandfather fought the Nazis. My grandfather fought the Nazis, for that matter.
Yeah.
So I am anti-fascist, but I don't claim any affiliation to any group or people that call themselves Antifa.
I gotcha. So, obviously something kind of inspired you to come out. Is this first, second, third, fourth, fifth plus time? How many times have you actually gone to an event where you filled this kind of protective role and you're displaying what I assume is a firearm?
So pretty much since the beginning, on the 29th, I was armed.
But that was your first time?
That was my first time. Prior to that, I'm an EMT. So prior to that, I had just kind of stuck my head in the dirt and ignored all the world's problems and just taken care of people as they came to me. But I got fed up. I saw it firsthand instead of just taking care of one or two in my ambulance, you know.
And do you see yourself as being a part of what's called Black Lives Matter, or is it something a little different than that?
So we are with Black Lives Matter. We 100% support the movement for equal rights. We support the idea that police have kind of overstepped. As an Army veteran, there's no reason that I should be seeing the same kind of Bearcats and Humvees rolling around that I was trained to fight in.
Yeah.
Vehicles that I have seen stop RPGs. We don't have RPGs. They don't even want us to have these. So I do support police defunding and the idea of giving it back to the community, especially to community outreach programs, revamping of educational systems, providing better opportunities, elimination of any kind of systemic racism and any sort of protection there might be against it.
Okay. Yeah. No. Thanks. That really did clarify, I think, where you're standing at. How big of a community do you feel like you're a part of now? You're out at an event. Loosely, do you feel like you're a part of hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands? When I ask that, what comes to mind?
Two different things. I'm a very community-based man. I'm a very simple man. So part of me wants to just affiliate myself with the people here because I know what they're doing. I don't know what other people are doing. I don't know what other people's aims are.
Yeah.
But if I came across another community like this in the other end of the state, I would back them as well.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say I do see myself as a part of a bigger movement, but on a more micromanaged sort of level, you know?
Gotcha. How would you, by the way, thank you for speaking with me so clearly and not evading anything. It was real transparent where you stand, I think. So tell me where you first were introduced to the term. You used it, systemic racism. And how do you define that versus what may have been traditionally called racism like 10 years ago?
So systemic racism is something that I don't have any personal experience with. Honestly, that just comes from, frankly, textbooks. I'm in school right now. I'm a nursing student, double majored with sociology. And my big areas of focus are studying the military-industrial complex, including militarized police, excessive weapon output to other countries, stuff like that, and systemic racism. That covers issues like the redlining that took place in the 1950s, which was the systemic denial of mortgages and large loans to people of color, which is why in Indianapolis especially you see the inner city areas that are very run down, poorly kept, and that's why the school systems there also need revamped, because with poor communities come poor opportunities, and unfortunately it's a reciprocating issue. Until we find a way to take care of systemic racism, it'll be very hard to move forward. We'll move forward, by all the gods we will, but it'll be hard.
Gotcha. If I think you may have already answered this. I was going to say, like, if there were three things policies you'd like to see enacted, and you had to only pick three to kind of tell me right now tonight, what would they be?
Policies about just
let's talk about systemic racism, since that's what we were talking about. So how would you, and I know no one person has like the answer, right? Maybe you do, I don't know.
Maybe one day with age and experience will come wisdom.
Right.
But I think the very first and foremost thing should be community outreach. A lot of people of color and otherwise, even white people living in the inner cities, tend to turn to a life of crime, join gangs and stuff like that. And that's not a racist statement. That's factually coming from a textbook perspective. The reason they do that, and there are a lot of very famous researchers and sociologists that will confirm this. They turn to it not because they're bad people, but because they love the family that they have to take care of. But school didn't prepare them for a job, and they may not have had good opportunities to excel in school, so they might not have moved on to post-secondary. So, I mean, they couldn't have become a nurse or anything like that. So community outreach, number one. Second, more funding to schools. A lot of these schools in IPS, Indianapolis Public Schools, I can't speak too much for Bloomington because I'm not very familiar with it yet, but in Indianapolis, a lot of the schools are very poorly funded, especially in comparison to places like Avon, Zionsville, Carmel, Brownsburg even. And the community around these schools is also much, much richer. So there's got to be a correlation somewhere in there. I don't have the answer because I'm a very new student.
Yeah.
But there's got to be an answer in there somewhere, a correlation.
I gotcha.
And the third, I'll keep this one more brief. The third, honestly, defunding the police, because I think that for a lot of people, knowing that police control everything and police can decide who and what is worth their time, if a couple kids get into a fist fight at school and one of them's 18, one is 17, the cop could decide to press charges against the 18-year-old or try to coax the 17-year-old into pressing charges.
Right.
That 18-year-old that was just doing what kids do. I know I've been in a few scraps. That was just doing what kids do could see a lot of prison time for assault. So better training for cops, defunding things like bobcats. There's no need for them. Maybe SWAT, but I know Indianapolis has more bobcats than necessary. They could carry all of their SWAT force in about a half to a third of their vehicles. There's no fact behind that. That is just from what I've observed. I don't claim to have seen a statistic on it. But
in terms of it, if we get into just loosely an economic system, do you have an ideology that you come from? The terms like whether you believe in private property, whether you believe in whatever a free market is. When I say those terms, how would you represent yourself, even loosely, when it comes to your economic system that you believe in?
So I'd like to keep my personal political affiliation a little bit more quiet, but I will say that I believe wholeheartedly in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, not as it's interpreted, as it was written. For example, the Second Amendment, a couple politicians have come out and said things like, during the Revolutionary War, you weren't allowed to own cannons, but they were, and it was safe and legal under the Second Amendment. Weapons like these would have been covered because it's the Second Amendment. It's not up for interpretation.
Can you tell me what your weapon is there?
So this is just a standard AR-15. It's got a scope. It's just a weapon that I'm comfortable with, that I'm trained with because I was in the Army. And frankly, if someone were to need to be, if I were to get into a gunfight, this is less likely to kill someone than, say, a very large handgun round would. In fact, just a little thing I'll show you. That is the big scary AR-15 round that everybody's been talking about. A standard 9mm bullet is twice the diameter and twice the weight. So, I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in everybody's right to live peacefully in whatever way they choose, as long as it doesn't impede other people's ability to live peacefully and happily.
Do you feel like people who are around you agree with you on those points, or is there some conflict on those points?
I had some former friends from high school that certainly didn't agree with me, and I quickly did away with them on my Facebook page. Everyone I'm surrounding myself with is fully in support of the movement and fully in support of rights to the people. Colored people, all people.
This is getting a little bit into the weeds philosophically, so if you don't want to answer this, is fine. So, what do you call it? The concept. So the Bill of Rights, some would say that some say those rights are from quote unquote God or natural rights. They're derived. Where do those rights derive from in your mind, or have you thought about that?
So I've got no problem saying this. I mean, I don't care how many people see it. I'm not Christian. I believe in a very old religion. I won't go into depth because it would take hours to explain it. I am religious, but I do not believe that anything going on here has to do with any of the gods. I believe it's the simple rights of man. My only issue with the Bill of Rights is that black people didn't have a part writing it. So if it were to be revised, I want people of color to revise it.
Okay, so if I were to say, do you think rights derive from government or the community, or do you think rights derive from God? Which would you choose? If you had that binary.
Not government and not God. The rights of the people come from the people. They come from the people. The government.
So does that mean if the people change their mind and vote differently, then they go away?
If the people vote differently, it's their right. At least they're voting. They're doing their civic duty.
No, wait. So if the majority of people say you don't have the right to have that gun, does that mean you don't have the right to have that gun?
I mean, that's a little bit nitty-gritty. Personally, I can't agree because our society as of now isn't safe enough for me to feel like I don't need it. If we lived in a perfect utopia where guns were truly and only used for leisure, for sport shooting, I wouldn't care for one. But
right. Do you see where, like, I come from a civil libertarian ideology myself, so you see where I'm disagreeing with you a little bit. I'm wondering, like, I'm asking you, like, I don't believe that that rights are whatever the populace believes. I believe that rights are derived from God myself.
Okay.
And so we could call it natural law if you want to, but so that, like, even if the majority of people say that we should kill redheads, that doesn't make it right. That's an extreme example, but I
that's
think
a good
you
way
should
of
have a
putting it.
right to have that gun, no matter what.
I like the way you put that.
But so how do you? Maybe you haven't thought that through, but I don't. I wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, in that case, yes. So I believe that people are in control of their in control of their rights. Yes, but people should be elected to make those decisions, and voting should be important. It should be all important. If two people decide they don't like my guns, they shouldn't be legally allowed to kick in my door and take them.
Okay, so here's I don't mean, I'm tired, I can tell you're tired, so I don't want to keep you too long. Tell me what a Boogaloo is. I don't know, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I've heard different narratives.
Do you want me to handle this one?
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to be careful about how I say it. It's because of all the different narratives I have to think about what I'm going to say. I don't want to throw it out. I don't want to accidentally throw affiliations out there that don't exist for us.
How about this? Are you part of the Boogaloo movement?
I mean, I think the memes are funny. I think the Claymore Roomba meme is funny, but I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I find it humorous. As far as
I'll tell you this, like, just so you know, I am ignorant somewhat, but I have heard narratives that are not what the main narrative is. For one thing, I interviewed a guy who claims to be a part of it, and he was in conversations with the Black Panthers, and they did an event in Louisville recently. You might even know him, for all I know. I don't know.
I don't know.
So I know there are different narratives out there, and I'm trying to figure out. For one thing, it's very confusing for the general public, and even me, who's somewhat engaged on these issues, I'm like so confused. I'm more interested in academia, what's happening on campuses with the philosophy behind how they're teaching or dealing with these things. That's more my angle. So you guys are on a different part of this.
So, as far as being a boot boy, I don't know if I would call myself that, unless if the description that is the most common to use were someone who stands up for rights of all, the rights of all people to protest, the rights of all people to live peacefully, then you could call me that. But
Gotcha.
I won't walk around wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I mean,
So not everybody who is associated with that wears a Hawaiian shirt.
no, I think it's more of an ideology. Now, I'm sure there's some boot boys out there that are all the way against protests, and I don't agree with that. If it's like you said, it's just got so many different narratives. It's just like being a gun owner, right? Some people could be, or just like guns. Some people could be completely against guns. Some people could be okay with guns in these people's hands. Some people could be okay with these guns but not those guns. And some people want all the guns all the time. There's so many different narratives, and I guess I could fall into the middle of it, you know? I believe in safety, and I believe in the right to protest. I believe in people's right to demand change, and I'll defend them in that.
Tell me a little bit about just how things went today. Not a whole narrative, but just like, how is the reaction to the different factions that were here? I don't know if there were different factions, but you're obviously a little different than the average woke college student who just like wants to be a part of Black Lives Matter, and then they encounter you. And I know what they're going to immediately think when they see you. Probably not what you've shared with me, and you've been very articulate, and I know that you're not on the 2x4 note card of what to expect. So what was it like?
So
The kind of reactions you got?
yesterday, I got a lot of reactions that I absolutely expected because I know my appearance. He knows his appearance. I even warned him that we were probably going to get shit when we first came down here. We know what we look like, and we know what demographic we look like. White guys with guns. But as far as general reaction, yesterday there was a lot of conflict as we walked up. Luckily, we had reached out to the organizers, and they knew we were coming ahead of time. So on our way up to the stage, we got a lot of boos, a lot of shame on yous, a lot of...
So you were welcomed
fuck
up to the
off,
stage?
right? Yeah.
That was organized?
Yep.
And they agreed to that? Did you guys ask for that?
No, they actually suggested it to us.
Very
And
interesting.
today they did the exact same thing.
Huh, I did
They
not
walked
know
us
that.
up right at the beginning, just to make sure that everybody knew we were with them. And they said, "Hey, just so you know, we asked these guys to be here. All of us lined up behind them. You know, they're with us. They're with a coalition. They just recently started, and we'll let them talk about it. You know, blah blah blah. We talked about it, and on our way back, the environment was a 180. A lot of the people that had said shame on you and had slandered us on the way up there, I don't blame them because first impressions are everything. But a lot of them came up to us and full-heartedly apologized, and we proved to them we were with them. We walked with them. We blocked the roads. Even today, I personally prevented an altercation in which I unfortunately know that one of our people of color would have been arrested had I not stepped in, because there was a fist fight about to break out, and we know how those go, unfortunately.
So tell me, this is something that comes to my mind. Do you see yourself as fulfilling a role that might exist if, hypothetically, if the police were defunded or somewhat abolished? Do you feel like you are representing what that replacement might look like?
If people wanted it, yeah. And if that were the case, none of us claim it'll be easy to do that kind of thing. There will be times where, situations can't be de-escalated, where people will punch us in the face, where people might spit on us, where anybody can get upset.
But you
because of
resonate
it.
with that, what I said. Sound like a hippie, but no, did you resonate with what I said there? Does that sound like something like, oh, okay? With what I said about, are you fulfilling a role that if the police were gone, this is the kind of thing, it's grassroots, seemingly, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, community support. I would be all the way down for that.
Would you call yourself a humanitarian? Have you ever heard that term?
Yes, but would you mind giving me your definition?
I don't know. I just think what we're talking about,
Okay.
and it is a loaded term, and different people use it for different
Yeah,
goals. It seems like you guys probably want to get out of here. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it very much. I hope we get to talk in the future.